Hey, welcome to Relatable Relationships Unfiltered. We all love the honeymoon phase of a new relationship, but this stage could be telling us more about the relationship than we realize. Today, I'm hanging out with Quentin Decamp, and we're chatting all about how to navigate this beginning phase of your new relationship. This is Relatable Relationships Unfiltered. Hello, Q. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. It's so great to connect and to be able to meet in this way after our Instagram connections that we've had. You have some very entertaining videos that you put up on Instagram.
Thank you.
What is the inspiration of that for those?
Well, I think it's because I'm like the client could attest with it. I go quite deep, really deep with them, and I wanted to have the contrast between, because the work we do is like we deal with things that are very. Are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah, I just couldn't see you anymore.
Oh yes, sorry. Yes.
Okay, cool. Back in. So yeah, we deal with issues and with deep problems. So I wanted to have that contrast between a video that can actually entertain people on some level, but then the caption will give a lot of value. So that was my take on it with this approach.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sure that people really connect to that then because there's the humor piece of it that brings them in, and then they read through the caption and are able to get really good takeaways because the messages that you're sending are so relatable, and they are very much what a lot of us deal with day to day in our relationships, and especially with attachment wounds and unprocessed traumas and all of that comes into relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was connecting also with your with your approach and all the information, because you give really amazing detail and spot on information, and I think we really need a lot of people like us, because I don't know if you notice, but on social media there's a lot of things that are inaccurate as well. So I think having precise information is very important for people in a world where there's a lot of inaccuracy, and that can drive people like in a complete self-diagnosed madness. And I'm really standing against that, because we need people that are very accurate, especially with mental health. We cannot continue to have people pretending to know or extrapolating things, and just because I've read a couple of Instagram posts. So yeah, I really appreciate your work as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. And I agree with that. There are so many mixed messages that are put out there, and also so many messages that are really perpetuating individualism in a way that is actually not conducive for the connection that is necessary in relationship. And so I think that that's, and I'm sure you can relate to this, but there's this fine line of the content that we're putting out that we know is the truth. We know that is scientifically backed. We know that it is, psychological truth, but that a lot of mainstream can't accept because they're simultaneously receiving these messages from people who are not educated, who are not trained in the field, telling them like, just live your best life, you do you, and all the things that aren't actually conducive for a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. You look even more like people trying to date now. Like, we don't go to date with like, oh, it's going to be fun. It's like, is she a narcissist or not? How many red flags can I spot? Gender or not gender? Feminist or red pill? Like, healed or not? Does he have BPD? Does he have this? And it's like the dating phase, it's almost like bringing more fear, which is also the honeymoon phase is about fear as well. And it's like mayhem. People are like, oh, Quentin, I need dating advice. And I'm like, oftentimes with men, I'm like, just become a man with values, and you won't need any dating advice, because the woman in front of you will feel that. She will feel the confidence, she will feel the integrity. So focus on you, focus on becoming a better man, not the king or the queen or something like that. Just be a good human being, right? Yep. You don't need to be a king. Like, it's like most kings were not really good if you study history. So
sure.
Like,
so that maybe is not the goal to try to achieve. When we talk about the honeymoon phase, let's jump into that. So in a new relationship, like, we love the novelty, we love the excitement, we love all of the feelings that come along with the beginning of a new relationship. But as you and I know, there's often more to it than people realize. So this infatuation can be so blinding. So let's kind of start with that. Let's talk about what's even happening in the honeymoon phase of a new relationship that becomes blinding.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I can relate to that because I was a very kind of sensitive, romantic kid. So I was like blinded first with, the Disney movie or like, oh, the honeymoon phase, like happily ever after. Actually, your relationship is going to start at the end of the movie. Like,
Good point.
and so the more intense the honeymoon phase from what I've experienced personally and from what I've seen in people, the more intense the honeymoon phase, the more fear-based it is. And so people can be confronted with that, and it's probably a big statement from the beginning of that part of that discussion. We're going to go there anyway. The intensity of fears is going to be equal to the intensity of the unresolved wounds, trapped emotion, accumulation of pressure from past relationship, and the level of dysregulation of your nervous system that we still carry. And
Right.
so, think about how many little times we can feel nervous at the beginning. It's like micro fear. And it's rushes of, as we know, of chemicals into the body. On the one hand, we have dopamine and oxytocin. On the other hand, we have adrenaline and cortisol. And it goes into the same pathway into the body. That's why it becomes so addictive. And
Right.
so that's why it's so intense, because fear is excitement. Excitement is arousal. Arousal is a turn on. That's also why makeup sex is so good, because it's like
Yeah.
comfort, fear, reassurance, boom. And it's a very addictive cocktail between, how can I put that? The pain and fear within what I call the pessimistic expectation in a relationship at the beginning, which is, are they going to leave me? Are they going to find someone else? Like, am I good enough? I am well enough? Am I okay in a relationship? Versus the reassurance, which is basically a releasing of tension that is stored into our body, coming back together. And so from the start in an honeymoon phase, this is what we get addicted to, is those contrasts between fear, reassurance, peace, chaos, stability, instability, proximity, distance, come closer, go away. And
Yeah.
so that's how we feel, from my perspective, into the honeymoon phase. What's your take on it?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, which as you're talking about that, I mean, that's a lot of how we would describe a trauma bond as well, is that there is this constant dance. It's the intermittent reward system. It is the slot machine. So in the honeymoon phase, when the coin is being put in, so we send that text and we don't know that person yet. So like, how are they going to respond? What are they going to say? How are we going to feel about it? There's just like so much going on, as you're saying, in our nervous systems of, it's new, it's novel, it's different, and we don't know what to expect. And so some of that, not knowing what to expect ties into that fear piece. And then if they're able to give us a response that feels good, that feels safe, that feels familiar, which is what then often leads to this trauma
Which
bond.
is safe for the ego, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then we get hooked. And that is what is so interesting. When people ask, like, how did I end up in this trauma bond to begin with? During that honeymoon phase, if we're getting enough responses that feel like, we know, we're used to it, we've seen this, this is not, it's new enough because it's a different person, but it's still familiar. That dance is what often leads to like that addiction, getting hooked.
100%. And I think for all the people that are, following you and listening to you, it's very important to make the difference between when we are in a power struggle and when we are in a trauma bond, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm in a trauma bond and stuff. The trauma bond, you can only develop the trauma bond with a partner if you were trauma bonded as a child. And so to be trauma bonded as a child, you need a wound of betrayal, because every trauma bond has at its core a wound of betrayal, whether it was from feeling betrayed because a parent ask you to meet their needs when it was not your job as a child, or left you alone one day at home and you feel like it was a betrayal, or then we go into the darker stuff like sexual trauma and stuff like that. The power struggle is going to be, it's inevitable, but to the degree you have been able to resolve your wounds, the power struggle will be way less intense. Because honeymoon phase, we start to be afraid, right? So we start to be very addicted to the person, but it's always revealed first, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of betrayal. And then we have the darkest fear, which is fear of extension, or fear of ego death, of fear of mutilation and stuff like that. But so all of that is going to keep us in a state of excitement with all the chemical release. And again, through contrast, lust, pleasure, and fear. This is why I want people to understand, you don't get addicted to the person. That's what you get addicted at the beginning of the relationship, which is all the contrast. And we mistake that with love.
Yeah.
And that will form the nature of sexual energy. From a place of wounding, again, sexual energy from a place of healing versus from a place of wounded. Because fear will, even more for a woman or a female body, it will either heighten a sense of arousal or inhibit it. And so we can see at the beginning, like, that's why sometimes for a lot of people, it takes time to orgasm, because there is some fear that can block the system. And so, yeah, at the same time, how beautiful it is, right? Because we need relationship to understand who we are by virtue of our differences. And our differences are going to be the trigger. So we can break free from our sufferings at a deeper level. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
And that's the tough dance, though, right? Because that is the knowing, finding the safety of like corrective experiences. So someone showing up different, maybe they're exhibiting some of those things that are familiar to you, but you move forward with the relationship and they're able to put in the work to show up differently, right? And so we can get corrective experiences. We can learn that people can show up for us, but that is not always the case. And so then sometimes it is just perpetuating those initial betrayals. As you're saying, though, with those original betrayals that take place, that's such an important point of this, because that is our programming. So that is what we came to know as familiar. That's what we have come to know as love, is those betrayals. And so when somebody is then demonstrating those behaviors, but then maybe there's those moments of reassurance, we feel like we are getting our needs met in those moments of reassurance, when in actuality, it is exacerbating the betrayal wounds. It is furthering really that programming.
100%. And the biggest betrayal that you can perpetuate and the biggest manipulation is the people pleasing. We feel reassured, but we don't realize we are abandoning our needs in the process. Maybe if I do that a bit more, they're going to love me a bit better. They're going to accept me. Maybe they're going to not choose someone else. But this is where we go out of authenticity and integrity. And when we are not in authentic and in integrity, the other person is going to feel it. And so we oftentimes see in those trauma-born power struggle, like people say, oh, I have the impression I'm losing myself, or I'm losing my sense of self, right? And we don't lose ourselves. It just, our lost sense of self is revealed. And this is why so many people then are going to ask the other person to become their sense of worth, to love them from a place of feeling they are not lovable. Or we ask our partner to make us feel important from a place of, I don't feel valued in my life. And so this is where big trouble starts. We will only chase something externally from the belief that we are missing something internally, or we are disconnected. That's go for it.
Well, which is such a sign of those unprocessed traumas, because the core beliefs that are developed in our initial programming when we're not getting our needs met in childhood develop those beliefs that we are not good enough, that we're not worthy, that no one's going to show up for us. And so we work so hard in our romantic relationships when we have that unresolved trauma to disprove that narrative that
Yeah.
that we feel is so true, but we don't want it to be true. But the problem is we often seek out these relationships that are perpetuating it, and those are the ones that we choose, of course, because it's familiar, and so we want to use that to rewrite the narrative. We want, if that person can just choose us, then we
Yeah.
get to feel worthy. Then all of those core beliefs get to go away. But unfortunately, that's not how it works, and often that person is not going to meet that need.
100%. And we actually don't choose. You know, like that famous Carl Jung statement, which is until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life, and you will call it fate. I like to reframe a bit, and it's like until you make sense of your subconscious, it will choose for you. Like unless you do the work and you heal, your ego is going to choose for you.
Yep.
That's why oftentimes example of someone with a wound of betrayal, you are going to either or both sometimes attract someone that is going to betray you to reinforce what's familiar for the ego, or you are going to go into the relationship betraying yourself because again, like you mentioned, that's what's familiar.
Yep.
And so in that honeymoon phase, when you find what you think is love, to the degree we get addicted to what we believe is love outside of us, we will get scared to lose it, because that's not love. Again, that's fear. We cannot lose love. We can only lose the awareness of the connection we have with our own sense of love. And that's happened. You will believe that love is constantly outside of you, and it's looking outside, and it's a quest that has no hand at all.
How do you describe love in a genuine sense to your clients? Because I know that can be really confusing. It's a confusing concept, love, because what is it? And what a lot of us were taught that it is, it's not. How do you help your clients make sense of that?
Yeah, oftentimes, like, it's not going to be a talk. It's going to be, when people come to me, I'm like, wait until the end of the mentorship and you're going to start to have a glimpse of what it is. Because the point is not to search for love. Love is inside, right? And so we are being of love. We are the essence of love, and we came on this earth to experience what love is on a human being level. It's like if we were to cut the earth in half, you have the core, right? That's love, that's your bliss, that's your soul. And then you have all the crust around. And the crust around is all the wounding and the conditioning that you are going to accumulate at the early age that then you need to peel out. So my approach is like, we are not moving towards something. We are going to remove what's in the way of you experiencing that your own sense of love, and then you are going to describe it to me. I'm not going to give you the answer for that, right? And it's so more empowering for someone to be like, wow, like I feel so much warmth. Like, what is that? I'm like, what did you ask me at the beginning? Love. And so then when you feel that, you cannot not attract someone different, because your new level of love and integrity, when you change your internal state, you're going to shift your external state. And not in a way, yes, you can change your internal state, by meditating in the morning or doing breath work. But you will see oftentimes people, they stay in that state for maybe an hour, and then it come back at the normal state. So we need to crack this prison and crack this programming so they can melt and be diffused. So love has no choice but to erupt. And so you change your internal, your external change. I had a client the other day. She had 2 big prison the first session. We crack her open. You can see her shaking and trembling like something was happening, and she could see the back of her father. And I was like, that's the wound of betrayal, because your father was walking away from you. The day after, she messaged me saying, you wouldn't believe it, like everything I was asking my partner to do that he was never doing, he finally did it. And I was like, yeah, you shift inside. People have no choices to shift. What could have happened is a breakup as well.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
So it sounds like what you're describing is that which is what I often talk with my clients about, is basically what you want more from your partner. Start by you being that.
Yeah.
Start by you providing that. Start by
100%.
showing up differently, because that change invites change. And we hear our clients talk so frequently about, like, if my partner just did this, I would be okay. Or if they did that, I would feel safe. If I would feel loved, I would feel accepted. And my question is often, and again, going back to like mainstream culture, people don't like these questions. They don't want to look inward. They don't want to look at their role in it.
Yeah.
But when we ask, what is your partner's needs? How are you showing up for your partner? How are you demonstrating love, commitment, dedication, nurturance towards your partner?
Yeah.
Often there's not an answer for that, you know, or the answer comes from that place of ego of, well, I do everything. I do everything around the house. I do everything for them. But really then when you ask for them to boil that down to what is everything? Like, what actually are you doing that is meeting their needs specifically? A lot of people don't realize that. And so when we can actually identify what does our partner need to feel safe, to feel accepted, esteemed, and we provide that, as you're saying, that really shifts our partner's perspective and their functioning back towards us.
Yeah, beautifully explained. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, this is the thing, like, the more I observe things, the more, like, to the degree you will only attract someone that has a level of integrity to the degree you are in that level of integrity. And sometimes you will hear people saying like, no, I know I'm in integrity and they were not, and blah, blah, blah. And they betray me. All right. Where did you betray yourself in a relationship? Let's look at that. All right.
Yeah.
Did you stay when, did you compromise? Did you stay while you had constantly, oh, that relationship is not for me, that I'm going to stay because it's comfortable? That's a betrayal. And so it's like, and then like you said, you know, like really understanding how the person in front of you wants to be loved. But again, a lot of love language, when people are not doing the work, are made out of compensation. Some people will say, oh, I just want you to tell me you love me. Words of affirmation, right? But then every time you say that, they're like, oh, I don't believe you. Well, you don't want to be loved. You are trying to prove that you are not lovable here. So no matter what I'm going to say to you, it's not going to enter your mind or your heart, because your ego is trying to prove that you are not lovable because you felt not lovable with a parent. That's what you are trying to prove. And so when we are in that dynamic, we can try our best, but if the person is not ready, it's not going to work. Right?
What are some ways that
What
are some ways that you see people? So you mentioned people pleasing, which I think is a huge one. It's a huge self-betrayal. And we see that commonly across the board, but especially in the honeymoon phase, right? Like that's people are showing up as their best selves. They they're craving that acceptance. They're going to do anything for it. What are some other forms of self-betrayal that you see take place during the honeymoon phase? Maybe even broken down for the layperson so, you know, they can really self-reflect on that.
Yeah, everything that is out of your truth. So for example, people that start dating again, I ask them to ask themselves, hey, I'm going on a date right now. What am I still trying to hide about myself to that person? And make a list of everything you are going to try to hide, and don't hide it, because that's how you betray yourself. Like,
what would be some examples?
Yeah, for example, I will take my example. In the past, I was a big womanizer. I used to hunt women, like, for sex. I was addicted to porn. I was addicted to sex and all that. My nickname in Paris was Mr. Grey from 50 Shades of Grey, for all the reasons that we know if we have read the book. And so
enough said.
Yeah, so if I look at that, right, and I got a bit if I date someone, I wouldn't hide that about myself. I would talk about it. I would talk about it. I would just say, yeah, in the past I used to be like this, I used to be like that, I used to be like that. Here's what I did to transcend it. So if the person is going to be scared about that, okay, I can understand. So maybe it's not the one, but I'm not going to hide everything that I've done in the past that could be shameful or thing, because I own my shame. You know, shame that we don't own leads to humiliation, but shame that we own leads to humility. So I am very humble about what I've done that could have hurt people in the past, that could have hurt myself. And then I'm very clear and direct about where I want to be in my life and what I want to achieve, what I want to accomplish, where I was versus where I am. And this is, you can feel when someone is in a very clear and integrity space. So yeah, like the first thing, like, where are you lying? Where are you lying to yourself? Where are you going to try to appear in a way that is not you? Because if you wear a mask, and we have so much mask of pretending, we know these people that pretending, and we can see behind the veil. If you wear a mask, you are going to attract people that love you for the mask.
Right.
But as a relationship is a container for us to grow and evolve, at some point the mask is going to fall. Don't get surprised if people leave you because you were wearing a mask in the first place.
Right.
But if you don't wear any mask, you're going to attract people that love you and reject you without the mask. Good. Like,
Sure.
so it's a redirection.
And I think that that's a great point during the honeymoon stage, is that we are constantly looking, we're wondering if the other person is wearing a mask without checking in on our own mask, as you're saying.
1000%. Yeah.
And so, yeah, like we are so worried about how they might betray us down the road. And we're not really assessing, am I showing up as my true self? And part of that is, even adding on to both of those, is your wants, your needs, and your boundaries. Like, how are you communicating those? Are you even, it's like for women especially, we are expected to be just go with the flow and like be accommodating and all of these things, that not having needs, that is that's what makes somebody, because when we think about the, like, how am I saying this? The crazy ex, so she was crazy. So we're expected to be easygoing. And I think that for a lot of women, they're not even able to identify needs, wants, and boundaries. And for men as well. I mean, this is all genders, certainly across the board, but I'm just thinking specifically for my female clients that, they say early on, oh, I'm not the needy girlfriend. Oh, I don't have needs. You don't have to text me. You don't have to tell me I'm beautiful. You don't have to take me on dates. But that shit comes around real quick in resentment, full force. And those masks come off.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, like, and we can see that, right? It's like, it's very new for me. And like, I started something with someone, and I'm like, the first question I ask her was, what did you do that was a betrayal for you? Like, what did you do that then you realize you shouldn't, like, people pleasing and stuff like that? And she explained, yeah, did this, that, did that. I'm like, okay, you don't do that with me, because I will see it and I will know when you are out of integrity, and I don't want that for you. I want you to meet your needs, to ask for your needs, because I am going to do the same with you. And there is no compromise around it. It's like, I cannot honor you and love you if you dishonor yourself by not speaking up, by not telling me what you like and dislike. So, and like you mentioned, a lot of women will be scared to say it. I'm like, if you're scared to say it, say it. Don't be scared to lose the person, because if you tell your truth and the person leave, you have escaped something big time, especially with the honeymoon phase, because we can get addicted very quickly through sex and stuff like that. So it's not like the first date and you're going to ask 1,000 questions around everything, but at the same time, you want to know quite quickly.
Right.
Because we don't want to lose our times. We don't want to lose our time.
And this is where we circle fully back around to how crucial it is that people have done their healing, that they have at least started. I believe that healing is an ongoing process. Even as a therapist and relationship expert, I am not fully healed, and I can own that. I have plenty of unprocessed trauma to go around, but I am on my healing journey constantly. And I'm not going to be stagnant or say, I think even saying, oh no, I'm fully healed, I'm fully evolved, fully arrived, is also a self-betrayal, because that's often not true for a lot of people. but we have to have started our journeys. We have to have enough awareness around what are our adaptive child tendencies, how are we likely to self-betray, so that when we get in a relationship, we can be aware of this.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to even know any of this is happening. And I want to normalize that for people listening as well, is that like these things you're not doing intentionally a lot of times. You're not doing that
Yeah.
because you're trying to fool anyone, because you're trying to manipulate anyone. A lot of times we just don't know. If we don't have a template for showing up, for expressing needs and wants, if we don't have a template for our needs being met, it doesn't feel safe enough just to say, well, just say it. And they'll leave or they'll stay, and either way is fine.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that is like debilitating. And until you do that healing work, it remains debilitating.
Absolutely. You nailed it. And so it's also looking at, a relationship that rely only on pleasure and fun will depolarize quite quickly, because there is no
Sure.
growth in there. It is stagnant. And if you look at, a water stagnating in a small pond, everything inside is going to start to decay. And so
Yeah.
we are going to move to that power struggle phase. And that's why I've seen people, the more wounds they still have to heal, the quicker they move to the power struggle phase.
What do you mean
Because
by the power struggle phase? Can you elaborate on that?
the phase when you start to be triggered by the other person.
When you're like, oh, you're an asshole.
Actually, oh, like, fuck, I didn't see that about you. Like,
Yeah.
I actually don't want that. No, it's like, and again, outside of a trauma bond, because if there is some sort of abuse, just leave, don't tolerate that. But I'm talking about a power struggle phase. We're like, yeah, you know what? You piss the shit out of me, but you're still important to me. So I'm going to go there with you because I know it's good for my healing, for your healing. So then we can come together and create a powerful container. And so what happens between that honeymoon phase and that power struggle phase is that, like you explained again, there is an anticipation that our needs are going to be met by this person. Yes, like everything is going to be met. But then there is a protest from feeling that our needs are not met. Yep. While the ego is actually meeting its need. Because what you need will be oftentimes the opposite of what your ego needs. And the ego needs, and oftentimes people are like, what are you talking about? The ego needs are going to be abandonment, rejection, betrayal, humiliation, deprivation, and powerlessness. Because most of us have experienced that as a child. So we have basic needs as a human being, to be loved, to be respected, to be seen, and all that. But then when that is not met, the ego is going to take what's familiar, and that's become the shadow needs or the ego needs. And so we go into this relationship not knowing that the ego is going to try to meet its need. That's why people are stuck. I feel abandoned. I feel rejected. I feel betrayal. Sometimes there is clear abandonment, but sometimes it's just like you taking your phone and your partner taking your phone, and you are like, fuck, she's probably cheating on me. That's the first thought. And that's where, like, your ego is trying to meet your need for betrayal here, because that's what was familiar. So
the other term even for that would be like confirmation bias, right? Like we have this belief that, and so the ego need is that we are trying to confirm that for ourselves, that yes, what you believe is true, and I'm going to get you evidence to support that. So 100%. Sorry, please go on.
No, 100%. And like, don't excuse yourself. You can interrupt me. It's okay. It's a discussion. So when two people haven't done, any work that works, because again, like what I can see is that there's a lot of work that keep people actually in that same thing, or when they are not aware, or when they are not actively working on themselves, and they don't have a precise awareness of or their subconscious prison or programming. Again, the stronger your love at first sight, the more intense your dating moments, the more like excitement, but very, very fearful excitement, the more likely you have attracted, the more likely you have attracted someone who has the same emotional signature as the caregiver you were most afraid to be around, the caregiver you were lacking from the most, the caregiver who may be punished or hurt you the most, or the culmination of both parents in case of a very abusive household. So we will always bring in partner to finish the unfinished businesses that we have with our parents. That's if everyone could know that, relationship would change dramatically, because now it's like, okay, a relationship is not about love. I am about love. So my job is to reconnect with my own sense of love. So then I can bring my love into that relationship. She is going to, or he is going to reveal something about me. I'm going to reveal something about them. Cool. Let's look at that and be like, yeah, cool. Let's work together. We got this.
Yeah, I think that that is the other piece of this that I have recently been talking more about with clients and just in general, is that we're likely going to end up in relationship with somebody familiar. So if we do all of the healing work we do, and we're trying to be aware of like, okay, we don't want to repeat this narrative. We don't want to reinforce these beliefs. Okay, you can do all of that work and you're still going to end up with somebody that's probably somewhat familiar. Now, on what degree is going to be based on your healing and the work that you've done. But when you start to realize, okay, oh shit, this person is triggering some of my dad, this person is triggering some of my mom, that is not an indication that that relationship needs to end or that that relationship is completely toxic. What
100%.
is the indication of that is, are you willing to talk about it? Are you willing to do something about it? And is your partner willing to receive that and also do that work, accept that awareness, receive that, and make the efforts to show up differently? That is what's going to be the defining factor. That's going to be the distinction between toxic and healthy relationship. So, when you realize, oh, okay, this person is kind of like my dad. Okay, we don't have to throw in the towel, but we do have to do something about it. And we do have to talk about it and we do have to address it.
Absolutely. And, like this is the thing I was seeing on Instagram more and more. At the moment, it's like, oh, if your partner make your nervous system react and you feel a bit unsafe, that's not the one for you. I'm like,
Yes.
this is infused in perfectionism or sparkle energy.
Yes.
And I think we did a similar post between making the difference between, is my partner is abusive and making me feel unsafe, or am I unsafe because of my programming and my prison? We have to make the difference. Otherwise, it's too easy. Oh, you make me feel unsafe once, oh, I'm out. You can spend a lifetime dating like this and never find someone. Because you have wounds. Yeah, you have wounds to reveal.
And that, yes, the whole like chemistry, if you have chemistry with somebody, that means that it's toxic. It means that there's like that person is bringing up your trauma, that you shouldn't, like all of these things. It's like, by the way, chemistry is actually a really important part of a relationship. Like we do need to have chemistry for sustainability of a relationship.
Yeah.
It is, what is the intensity of that chemistry?
Yeah.
And is that chemistry like something that you are able to navigate and you're able to manage and you're able to understand where it's coming from, versus something that is sending you into panic attacks and really obsessive behaviors? There is a fucking difference. So like really like sending that cut and dry message of like, nope, this person's not for you if this is happening, for the love of God, please.
Yeah,
like that's not working.
100%. And I'm a man. I know a woman can be intoxicating.
Yeah.
Like in terms of, wow, yes, like body wise and face wise, and even like inside wise, like how they speak, how they interact, and how they move, and all those things. And so it's very important for us to do the work, because then you can recognize, and it's very rewarding and fulfilling when you look at your past, look how you were reacting to your honeymoon phase and how you will lose yourself in it and stuff like that. And now, especially as a man, being like sometime, oh, I want to move towards this person. No, I'm staying. I'm like, I'm not going to move every time I feel tempted by it. I'm going to practice that masculine energy, which is like, yeah, I want her. Good. Like, keep working on the purpose, keep working on your job, do the thing that make you feel fulfilled. And then I'm going to go. And then I'm going to connect. And so having that approach of transcend or transfer because it's like transcend your limitation, do the best work you can do before the relationship. The what still need to be revealed is going to be revealed in the
Yeah.
relationship. So transcend what you can transcend, otherwise that's going to be transferred to your partner and your children.
Right.
So the sentence I love to use, it's like, unless you reconcile with your history, you will be in a relationship with the stories based on the fear that your ego is in love with. And it's
Mm.
a very, very powerful statement that we need to look at. It's like, okay, what are the stories, especially in the honeymoon phase, that I keep telling myself that are going to maybe sabotage me in the process or sabotage a partner, instead of just enjoying, because honeymoon phase is a fun thing. In
Yeah.
my last relationship, I didn't have any honeymoon phase because I went directly. It was chaotic. She was divorcing, like there were a child as well. I didn't have time. So now I want to enjoy that, because
Right.
honeymoon phase is also going to be a solid base for you to see how your partnership can evolve. It's
Yeah.
not only like you have to be like, oh, it's my wound and stuff like that. Just enjoy it as well. It's very
Yeah,
important.
no, such a good point that we don't have to overanalyze everything and we don't have to pathologize everything and we
Yeah.
don't have to make everything more than it is. If you were to say, these are the couple things to maybe be aware of during a honeymoon phase, while you're also simultaneously enjoying it, what would those couple things be?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very interesting question, because like people see red flags everywhere now. I would
Sure.
mean, like, the first thing is, again, clarity and integrity. It's an energy, and it's going to be, again, your best compass is you. The
Mm.
more you know you are in integrity, the more you're going to recognize that in people. You recognize the energy of the lie. You can see someone, like, physiology or voice change when they lie, or when they hide something, the body crouch a bit, they look different. So, well, there is so many things that we could talk about. Yeah, look for clarity. Does that person knows what she wants?
Yeah.
Does, like, if you ask, for example, hey, what do you value? What's very important in your life? What do you want in this relationship? And they are quite clear on it, that's a good sign. It's like, oh, like, if you have a man that come and say, I just want to go with the flow, run the other way, because it's not gonna work. Run the other way, like,
Because they're
or
full of
the
shit.
full of shit, like the bypassing thing. Let's go Netflix and chill, and I will do some healing, and I'm gonna message you. That's the biggest bullshit I can hear. Don't do that. Just recognize this. What would you say are kind of the really red flag that we need to look at, not the bullshit red flag that we can hear all the time?
Yeah. So the red flags I talk about are the universal red flags. And
Yeah.
that is if somebody is, how are they treating the staff at the restaurant? How are they treating the people around you? How are they able to hold a conversation? Are they asking you questions? Do they have
Yeah.
interest in knowing about you? Those are the things that I suggest somebody who comes across as really self-absorbed in the first couple dates, that's who they are. So that's not because they're nervous. That's not because this is awkward. Like, that's who they are. And
Yeah.
so those are like some of the universal ones I suggest being aware of. But when it comes to like, oh, they work too much, that's a red flag. Well, so personally for me, I'm like, excuse me, screw you, because I work too much. Some of those I'm like, that's not a red flag. That's
No.
you subjectively don't like that. And so I do like to make that distinction as well, that there's a difference between a red flag and a preference. But I would
Yeah,
say
absolutely.
during the honeymoon stage, the things to be aware of are engaging in self-reflection frequently. So as you were saying, checking in on, am I trying to hide something? Am I showing up as my authentic self? Do I feel safe around them? So even if I am feeling
Yeah.
excited and kind of giddy, do I still feel safe? Do I feel
Yeah.
comfortable? Um, those are some of the main things. And then also how quickly conflict starts. That's a really
Yeah.
important thing to be aware of, because if you're having conflict in the honeymoon stage, like, you might want to bail out of that.
Yeah, it's a big indicator of difference of values or preferences, or are also the non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you want a child and the other person doesn't want, don't try to stay and convince them. Believe them from the start. No, I don't want a child. oh, but yeah, but they are still good. No, if it's really a non-negotiable, because you asserting that this is a non-negotiable for me, therefore I'm not going to go there, that's dignity, that's integrity. You are going to attract someone that is going to like your non-negotiable and be on board with this. Because that's integration opportunity. You are going to attract people that sometimes test you on that to see if you are going to get out of integrity or if you are going to stay in it. You succeed at that, you're going to bring someone in that will be at the same level as you.
Absolutely. I love that. Very well said. Quentin, thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find you? How can they learn more about you? How can they go check out your amazing reels that crack me up?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So for now, it's only on Instagram. So at quentin.g.decamp. So here we go. It's coming on the screen right now. And so I'm in the middle of rebuilding everything. I'm rebuilding my branding, my website. I'm going to start probably next year do groups and online courses. I'm just only doing one-on-one right now because I think it's very, very important to still have people doing one-on-one. That's where the best transformation can happen. And yeah, that's it.
Well, very good, Quentin. Thank you again. And this was a great conversation. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Liz. Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Quentin, for chatting with me all about the honeymoon stage. And thank you all for hanging out on Relatable Relationships Unfiltered. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for my newsletter, and find me on Instagram at Dr. Elizabeth Fedrick.
This is Relatable Relationships Unfiltered.